There's a notable hole at the DH position for the Toronto Blue Jays, and Jorge Soler has been a name that has been brought up multiple times through rumors and just a bunch of different pundits around Major League Baseball. The Jays have been linked to him, and they're said to outbid most teams when it comes to getting his services. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, we've heard this movie before. We've heard that the Blue Jays are in the pole position to acquire somebody, and then it all goes to, I don't know, garbage. It all goes to garbage after it just doesn't end up coming to fruition. But the Toronto Blue Jays have been linked to Jorge Soler extensively throughout this offseason. He is a guy that would solve a lot of their power problems. And he's still fairly young. He's only 31 years of age and someone that could definitely contribute big time for this big league club. So Jorge Soler, very intriguing option for the Blue Jays to acquire. Very good power hitter. Has been inconsistent over the years, but definitely someone that the Jays have circled on their radar. And by all accounts, are right there when it comes to acquiring him.
Yeah, a new report just came out. Before you know that, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. We're approaching 12,000, so thank you guys for that. And Peter, let's get into it. John Heyman came out and said some interesting things. Now, obviously, we've heard a lot of rumors before. The market is moving about as slow as anyone could have expected. Bellinger hasn't signed. Martinez hasn't signed. Soler certainly hasn't signed. And according to John Heyman, Soler is picking between two teams, and the Blue Jays are one of them. And if you go into the article, it basically says, even though the Red Sox have checked in on Jorge Soler, there's suspicion they will be outbid again, and perhaps by the Blue Jays. And then he also says the Mariners look at Soler, where they're seen as less likely. And we've seen multiple reports throughout the season about Jorge Soler and the Blue Jays, but it seems like they're starting to pick up a little bit now, and that the Blue Jays do not want to be outbid for the absolute slugger, to put it lightly. What are your thoughts on this, Peter? Again, we've kind of been, some people prefer Jock Peterson, some prefer Jorge Soler. I asked my friends who are Jays fans, and it's completely up in the air. Like, some people just prefer the potential ceiling of Jorge Soler, but then, of course, Jock Peterson, I would say, has the higher floor. So what are your thoughts on this? We've discussed it before, but it seems like if they want to get Jorge Soler, they can. It's just going to cost them a bit more money, even though the market has slowed down a lot lately, and doesn't seem like players are going for too much, at least in the position player side.
Well, I think it's more encouraging that the Blue Jays are in on Soler because he's going to require more of a financial commitment and more of a long-term commitment. And to me, that signifies that they want to win long-term and not just this season. I think Jock Peterson would act as more of a one-year deal, more of a platoon type of player, whereas Jorge Soler would be in your lineup every day. He hits righties and lefties just as well. So he would be in that lineup every day in the DH position, maybe play some outfield every now and then, but you know what you're getting him for, and you're getting him so he could mash in the middle of that lineup. And he had a really good year last year with the Miami Marlins, kind of slowed down there towards the end, but he's a masher. He's a big-time power threat and someone that could help out this Blue Jays team big time. So I'd be in on him, and like I said, it signifies a wanting to win not just this year but beyond this season as well. He's a good player, not a great player, but definitely what the Blue Jays need. Someone that'll hit a lot of home runs. He's going to strike out a fair bit, but he's going to get on base. He's going to hit a lot of home runs, and he's just an overall solid player. So it's intriguing to me, and the Jays should be in on him. They should be able to outbid other teams. They were ready to spend a lot of money on other free agents like Ohtani. Didn't come to fruition, but now you have a chance to acquire a guy who's going to help out your team a lot, and you should do whatever you can to get him.
Yeah, and we saw the report yesterday about how one reporter thinks the Jays are going to get one of Chapman or Bellinger, and if that's the case, and they also add Soler, then we're looking at a completely different offseason than we were just, I guess, right now, depending on when that happens. And this is also notable because it seemed last week that there was some traction picking up between the Boston Red Sox and Jorge Soler. And for John Heyman, albeit he's not the best reporter, but he's been pretty accurate so far this offseason, to say that the Jays are looking to outbid them is pretty big because, I mean, part of it would be, I'm not sure how nice it would be to be able to, or have to play Jorge Soler tons of times against the Boston Red Sox, an interdivision rival, because, I mean, we saw what he did last season. He put up an 853 OPS, 36 home runs. Like you say, he tailed off a bit towards the end, but 2022, he had a very poor season. And then before that, he had a great season, so it's kind of like up in the air. And then a big thing with Jorge Soler, and we noted this a while ago, is that he can be an outfield asset when required. And this is important in the sense of we have two lefty hitters in our outfield, and neither of them are necessarily power threats. I guess Varsho could be considered a power threat. Kiermaier definitely is not. So against left-handed pitching, if you have Jorge Soler, you can slide him into the outfield and then give one of Varsho or Kiermaier a day off, depending on what you're doing. Both of them are elite center fielders anyway, so Varsho could slide to center field, give Kiermaier a day off. I like the idea of adding someone who can play the outfield, even if it's not at a high level, specifically against left-handed pitching.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need power. That's been very well documented over the course of this offseason. The Blue Jays need to add a big time power bat. It's just not enough what they have right now. It just isn't. And I think they're still a very good team with the current roster construction that they have. But adding a Jorge Soler and then maybe even a bat on top of that, I think the Blue Jays need two bats. If we're being honest here, I think they need a DH and they need another outfielder or a third baseman that's going to hit for some power. They need two bats, in my opinion, and then it'll be a very successful offseason for them. But as it stands right now, I'd give this offseason like a C minus or a D plus. It's been very uneventful. They haven't done much, and they haven't really addressed the areas of need that have plagued this team over the offseason. I mean, they added Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, but there's still a hole at third base. There's still a hole at the designated hitter position. And I need them to do something more here. I need them to add, and I need them to add some umph into this lineup heading into next season, because as it stands right now, I think they're third best in the division when we're looking at it as a whole. I think the Orioles are ahead of them. I think the Yankees got a lot better with the addition of Juan Soto, and the Blue Jays have kind of stalled. They kind of just are where they are right now, and they haven't gotten any better. And you can't discount the Tampa Bay Rays either. You really can't. We've made that mistake before. They're still a very good ball club, even though they traded away some assets. And we look at the Boston Red Sox, they're slowly getting better as well. They're making moves. They added Tyler O'Neill. So the Jays need to do something, because they're last so far when it comes to off-season acquisitions in the AL East, and that's just not going to cut it. In the most competitive division in baseball, you have to add, you have to constantly get better, and the Blue Jays haven't done that yet, but Jorge Soler would be a great stepping stone to doing that.
Yeah, and luckily the offseason is, tons of the players are still available, but I tend to agree. Besides the Orioles, because the Orioles have done nothing, but besides them, they don't spend money. Every other team, yeah, like you said, have made big acquisitions. We saw Marcus Stroman go to New York yesterday, which is going to be a funny thing. But I think ultimately, in a couple weeks, we're closer now to spring training than we are at the beginning of the end of the World Series. So I think a big move is going to happen. I just don't know when it will be, because hopefully it's going to happen soon. But do you have any quick final thoughts on Jorge Soler? And I guess I should ask you, what contract would you be comfortable giving Soler to come to the Blue Jays? Because at first people were thinking he might get a 3 or 4 year deal. Reports are starting to circulate now. It's probably going to be more so a 2-year deal, maybe a 3-year deal. What number would you be comfortable throwing out? And people are watching, leave that in the comments as well. What number would you be comfortable giving Soler before we wrap up?
I'm thinking 3 years, probably 3 years, 60 million is probably going to do the trick there. And he's one of the premier power bats that we have in the game today. Obviously, we know the inconsistencies. We know that strikeouts are a big part of his game. But you take the good with the bad. And if someone's going to hit 35 home runs for you on a yearly basis, then you take some of those strikeouts, because that's the area of need that is the most pressing for this Blue Jays team right now. So if you get Jorge Soler and then you get a couple of bounce backs out of George Springer and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., then your lineup is looking a lot better. And let's look at the money that Teoscar Hernandez got from the Los Angeles Dodgers. 1 year, 24 million, was it, or 23?
Like that, yeah.
Something in the realm like that. And I think you're going to have to command similar AAV if you're Jorge Soler. I think he's a better hitter right now at this point of his career than Teoscar Hernandez is. And he's going to command more money, and he's going to command more term. So to get something, you got to pay, and I think Jorge Soler is well worth the price tag if it's 3 years and 60 million. I'd be more than comfortable with that if I'm the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and the Blue Jays team is constructed to where his weaknesses don't really affect the defense. We have elite defense, we have elite everything. Great contact hitters, and we need some power. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what you would be willing to give Jorge Soler, and hopefully that deal gets done soon. If you want to check out our video from earlier today, click on your screen now. Thank you guys for watching.